Hawkins, way to go, girl. That was an outstanding lesson. So proud of you and the kids. Tell me how you felt about it.
I thought the lesson was good. The changes that we made in the pre-conference were excellent and really worked out with the kids.
Apple Grove Principal Beth Lynn and her teacher Dion Hawkins, along with almost 1,700 other principals and teachers, have spent the past 2 years piloting the Framework for Teaching signature classroom observation model. Scheduled to be used district-wide in all Prince George's County schools this school year, the FFT model is decidedly different from what has been done before, but according to those who have experienced it, far more satisfying and effective.
In the old way of doing things, you know, you script tape forever and ever and ever, and you came away with these pages and pages of, well, you know, having been a teacher, you know, you get the observation write-up that says, you did this, and the kids did this, and then you did this, and then the kids said this, and then they got out their books. What does that really tell me about my teaching? And with the rubric, I mean, the target is very clear.
The framework provides a rubric for good instruction. So a teacher can navigate through unsatisfactory, basic, proficient, and distinguished, those categories, and they could actually examine their own practice, starting with the actual planning and design of the lesson and looking if their lesson plan qualifies or meets certain areas of the rubric, and then they can self-assess, and then along with the principal or the assistant principal, go through the process with them. So it is a more reflective process about best practice and best instruction. How you doing, Mr. Vance?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. I want to thank you for joining me for our conference today. I just had a couple of questions about your lesson.
Okay.
Wanted to ask, how do you think it went?
I think it went fairly well. It actually went a little bit better than I was anticipating.
For many teachers like Clifton Vance and Tiffany Doster, last year's Teacher of the Year, data collecting, artifacting, and reflecting on practice, all key features of the FFT observation model, are now second nature. But they did take some getting used to.
Look at your evidence, look at the data that you're collecting, see if you're engaging all of your children and if all of them are finding success through the process. High five for you! Yay!
For starters, the first thing I noticed is just the actual evaluation paperwork. At the end of the year, our formal process now is that we get this as satisfactory, needs improvement. So it wouldn't differ. If you get satisfactory, it means it would show that I'm equal to this teacher. It doesn't show any difference from myself to another teacher. Using that framework for teaching model, you have evidence. So it shows, it makes you stand out. If you need improvement, if it shows if you're basic, if you're proficient, or if you're distinguished. And a lot of us might think we're distinguished, but when you get back that evidence, you're like, I have some work to do. So it is an eye-opener for us, but that's the first thing I saw, is that it'll allow us to have some real recognition. It'll show that, hey, this is where you are, this is where you need to be. And so it makes that difference for us there. The other thing I noticed is that it really does hold us teachers accountable. We have to really start doing our planning of our lessons more deeply. We have to go beyond just the normal 5Es or just a traditional lesson plan. You really have to figure out your questions ahead of time and anticipate the responses from the students. You really have to think about how you're going to engage all of those students and have them take ownership of that learning. And the last part is that it really allows me to reflect. It's all about that teacher. You really have to look at your own practice and see, where can I improve? Did I meet my goals? Did I meet the goals for my students? And it's all about you. How can you improve yourself? And I think that's the biggest piece for teachers, is that they're going to have to look at themselves.
Using educator Charlotte Danielson's carefully organized Framework for Teaching model, which breaks down teaching and learning into 22 components across 4 domains, administrators and teachers can now look at themselves, call it collaborative reflection, with an observation tool that differs markedly from the single lesson experience of the past. And while it is in many ways less threatening and more edifying, the new FFT model also takes a lot more time.
Without a doubt, that is the biggest drawback with the entire process. It's the amount of time that it takes from the teacher standpoint to do the self-reflections and then the conversations that have to be held with the administrators prior to that first lesson. So we're looking at goal setting, we're looking at pre-conferences with teachers, we're looking at going into the classroom, actually doing the observation, collecting the evidence, and then the administrator has to come back, give the teacher a draft form of that evidence, and the teacher has to review it, reflect on their lesson, and then have another conversation with the principals or administrators regarding that piece.
You also mentioned something about all the children in the group not wanting to participate.
Yes, some of the ones are very quiet, and that's just their personality. So if they can get away with it and go around the group and not have to say anything, they're going to go for that. So how can I get them all engaged?
And then, of course, the teacher has a second cycle of that same process during the second part of the school year. And then we have our final evaluation. So it probably takes about 4 to maybe 5 hours, honestly, to do it right. But the beauty of it is the teachers and the administrators, we actually enjoy the part about having conversations surrounding instruction.
The volunteers who piloted the FFT in the county's first program and met with Education Secretary Arnie Duncan were compensated for their efforts. But they and the current users of the model seem as much or more interested in professional development than in making a few extra dollars.
And during that meeting, Arnie Duncan talked about, so was it the compensation that attracted you to this model? Why are you doing this? And I heard from several teachers who indicated that, yeah, the compensation may have been the original or the initial reason that I became involved, but now it is the quality of the professional conversations that we're having about teaching. And I think that speaks to why it's so critically important for us to really look at the framework as a part of continuing the development from one degree, proficient, to another degree, advanced or distinguished.
While the multiple meetings before and after the observed lessons are time-consuming, the many benefits of the FFT model, including more professional conversations, greater amounts of trust, and far more self-assessment, seem to make any inconvenience well worth the effort.
I think for the average student in my classroom, I think I've done a good job on meeting them where they're at. I think I can improve on meeting my more gifted students.
It also made me very aware of the diversity in the classroom. All students don't learn the same way, and I might give a pretest at the beginning and say 50% is the high score. And I noticed that one of the students that did really poorly on the pretest is actually excelling during the class, even without me having done any instruction. And it made me look at, okay, well, maybe this student is not a great test taker, or maybe the questioning, the way the question is asked, is difficult for them to process. So it really made me aware of the fine tuning, like they say, the devil's in the details. It made me very aware of the details of my craft. And I think teaching is one of the most noble professions, and I want to be the best I possibly can be.
I actually really love the framework for teaching model and the domains that Charlotte Danielson has brought to Prince George's County. This framework for teaching has really enhanced my professional teaching practices in the sense of I'm always coming from what would have the students curious enough to want to be engaged in a lesson. What would they have to do? What would they have to be surrounded with? Like, what does the environment look like? What would they be exposed to? So it's really student-centered, student-oriented, and it's for student development, which in fact enhances student achievement.
I think we just have to embrace it as something. I think we do need to have a change for the way we evaluate teachers. And I know it is a lot of work for administrators, but I want administrators to know that I really appreciate meeting with my principal the first time in the beginning of the year and then meeting again at the end of the year to show some growth for myself. So these were the goals that I set for myself. How am I going to know that I actually improved from going from proficient to actually distinguished? How will I see that if I don't meet with you again? And having those conversations for people who are afraid to go and talk to their principals, this allows you to open that door and have those kind of candid conversations. And I appreciate it because, you know, it makes me a better teacher.
Okay. So, all right, Tiffany, this is our final observation of the school year. So, high five. We made it. So, if we can go back and look over your 2 goals that you really identified that you want to work on.
The kind of energy and zeal of teachers like Tiffany Doster testify to FFT's ability to inspire even the greatest of teachers to reach even higher. For as they are looking more carefully at themselves, teachers can keep a keener eye on the real prize, which is Prince George's students and their great hunger and potential for learning. For TV 96 and 38, this is Dave Zarin reporting.